Hi, I'm Nicola.
And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We are two animists and spiritual practitioners exploring the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Each week we share our experiences and dive deep into everything in life, from philosophy, metaphysics, obeah, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, pop culture, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile and authoritarian world.
We keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us holding this space to laugh, cry, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
Welcome, beautiful, beautiful being of the multiverse to the Afro Animist Podcast. You are here today with me, Jay Percy.
And me, Nicola Roth. And today...
And we're here for...
I'm sorry. I need to work so much harder on my intro. Like, why is this still nerve-wracking for me?
Do you want to go through your bit and then you can go, and today?
No. Just like let the listeners hear how fucking chaotic it is. Like,
okay, we're going full balls to the wall chaos, and today we are doing a special Wheel of the Year episode. If you're familiar with us, you'll know that we do these as many as there are points in the Wheel of the Year. We're doing an episode on Ostara, which may be commonly syncretized or known to you as Easter. So I think this is a particularly important one to talk about purely because of its significance within the Western world and how it appears in the Western world, and its pagan roots, where it's come from, what the meanings behind it were, and some rituals that you can do to respect this time that don't involve you nipping down to Asda and gifting someone a 3 for £5 chocolate egg. I mean, you can
but
do
no
that.
But no
I'm not stopping you from your annual chocolate fix, but there are definitely other ways that we can get to respecting this time, and it does need respecting, and we will tell you why. Nicola, tell us a little bit about Ostara this time of year.
So, obviously Ostara falls across Spring Equinox. So in my brain, I don't really think loads about Ostara, I haven't up until recently, obviously, because we've got our wonderful mentor Emma who's talking about it, thought about it as Ostara in the same way. Obviously, I recognise the connection of Easter, but for me, this time of year is about the Spring Equinox. So Spring Equinox this year is getting out the trusty almanac again. Seriously, I need to get this woman to sponsor us. So it is this year, the Spring Equinox or the Vernal Equinox is on the 20th of March at 21:24. That's when the sun will be exactly above the equator. And what this time of year is across the world, pole to pole, everyone has roughly 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of sunlight. It also represents we spoke about this in our New Year's episode, actually. Like, it represents the kind of official start of the new year in the sense that it's spring. Like, and I'm sure everyone has heard of spring cleaning. Like, we have all of these
getting
things
out all of that old energy. And if anything, this is the point of the year to freaking manifest. So get your manifestation hats on.
Exactly. For me, that is what this time of year is about. And I really feel it, actually. Like, and I guess, yeah, again, if you've been paying attention this year, you'll see probably episode by episode, I get a little bit more alive because we're reaching the time when I feel like we should wake up, which is the equinox. So this time of year is great for all of those things, all of those, cleaning out the old to make space for the new. And I just love that idea. Like, just throughout all of the studies that we do, it's a really important concept to kind of get your head around. Like, we want all this stuff but do you have the space in yourself, in your life, whatever? I always do like a bit of a spring clean around this time, and it isn't even necessarily like a conscious thing. It's just like naturally I just feel that I want to move all of that
Mm.
energy. And I also recognize this as a proper time for kind of really planting the seeds of the rest of the year. So what is it that you are
Mm-hmm.
wanting this year? Now the energies that are around, they are optimum, prime, ready for you to be planting those very intentional seeds, and watching them grow as the seasons change, basically. So,
Yeah,
do
this is
you have,
definitely seed planting season, metaphorically, physically. This is the real start to the new year. If you didn't know, this is the real start to the new year, to the earthly new year. We count like Halloween or Samhain as the start to the more like the spiritual new year. This is the start of the physical new year. This is
Mhm,
the start of this realm and moving around in this realm and awakening and things growing, which is why it's come to pass that this time of year has associations with this idea of like eggs and
mhm,
bunnies, because bunnies like reproduce like rabbits. And eggs,
mhm,
new life comes from eggs. And when we think of what this time of year is called Ostara, which is taken from the Germanic goddess Ostara, um, this time of year, and her symbols are about new life. They are about fertility. They are, symbolized by like the hair and things that really represent when you walk out into the physical world. You can actually see that the animals know it is time. It's the best possible time for their offspring to start having babies, because it's going to be warming up, which means more food, which means that these babies are going to get fed, and nice and
mhm,
plump in time for the winter. There's a reason why most of these animals in these parts of the world where it's cold, they don't, give birth necessarily in the depth of winter where there's no protection,
mm,
no food sources. It's because there is an intelligence to nature. There is an intelligence to knowing that the best possible time is just as you get to the beginning of that upward trajectory.
mhm,
And I want you to count this part of the year as a beginning of an upward trajectory. If you've had a terrible start to 2023, uh, you know, it is what it is. It just is. Whatever that's thrown into your experience to make you want more, to make you want better for yourself, now is a really good time to orient yourself, to align, to put in place some rituals so that you can
mhm.
start to move forward in that direction. Go for it.
I really feel like you're talking straight to me, babes. I mean, I know you literally are, but like, yeah.
This is for you, Nikki.
Thanks, babes. I need the help. No, I really love this time of year, if I'm honest.
What do you
I
love
start to
about it?
feel, I just start to feel so much more inspired. Okay, I get really excited about seeing, like, like flowers bloom and little baby birds
Yes.
and, all of that kind of stuff. I do get very excited about it. I love like the mornings at this time of year as well, like kind of the dawns. And I can just feel it. There's just an energy of life that I can totally jump on and feel inspired by. And honestly, I think we spoke about this before as well. It's like we kind of always we miss these dates a lot. It's like, oh god, it was Imbolc yesterday. Shit. um, and there's something about the spring equinox which almost is. I know it's essentially the first one on the wheel of the year, but it's the one that will usually get me kind of set more on my practice.
I am
Um,
preemptive for this one. The rest of them, like, oh shit, it happened yesterday. This one for me and Samhain, Halloween, these are the two where I'm like, I don't care if I've forgotten all of the others. Like these two, I am marking. This is that first one I am like marking.
That's really interesting. Yeah. No, I
It's not
totally get, because
intentional.
I no, but it's just natural. It's that natural feeling. It's this is what again, just the connection that we have as human beings with the freaking planet we were born onto. I think most people have, whether or not you recognize it, you're conscious of it. I feel like you can feel it. The whole world is the energy is moving and changing. What I actually think it'd be quite interesting to talk about this in relation to Jesus, our Lord and Savior.
Oh, okay. Okay,
And
okay, okay.
what happened to Jesus at Easter?
Well, you, okay, so presuming Jesus Christ is a real human being, um, I just find it bizarre that it's this time of year that he, he's dead, he's died, he's been murdered, but then he's risen. He's risen. He is resurrected. He is brought back to life. Um, I think it's a very interesting allegory, which I probably haven't like figured out or like delved into. I reckon you
Ooh.
probably would have more thoughts on that as
I mean,
a
yeah, I think.
practicing very good Catholic.
Oh gosh, I was never a good Catholic girl. I was always a witch. Um, enemies closer is what they say. No, in regards, I think what you said just then in explanation of Jesus and what happened to him at this time of year, I think is exactly it. So obviously, Christianity has, as we know, the major religions sometimes, in order to put another level of control and actually make it easy for us to change over to that way of thinking or the rituals that they want you to do, they will take the natural, like the original holidays that we had, shall we say. So if we're thinking about Ostara, we're thinking about Easter in that way, we're thinking about fertility and growth, we're thinking about spring, we're thinking about new beginnings, we're thinking about the cleaning out of the old to let in the new. Then if we take the allegory of the story of Jesus, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. He was murdered, he was betrayed and murdered. Life was ended, like everything was stopped. That was what came before was killed. And then during this time of fertility, and it is a time of rebirth, a time of growth, a time of new birth, he was then brought back to life. Um, I don't know. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. I feel like that is exactly what this time of year is about in a way, and that's also why it's it's so easy, or it has been easy for us to create that transition. Actually to take this fertility festival and make it about Jesus. So yeah, but just like having the awareness of these things, like our myths and legends, essentially, like of the cultures that we're part of, I think is really really important. And a lot of time when you look at the Bible holidays, they will make sense in relation to what's going on with the pagan holidays. So yeah, I feel like you can totally tell that this is a time of fertility and rebirth and growth. I personally, around this time of year is when I start to get really excited about my altars and kind of like what I'm building on my altars. So, but no,
Mm.
do you do your altars seasonally?
I do wipe them out seasonally. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
I try to tell myself, oh yeah, do it on different moons. And there are certain moons that I will do it on. Just not even that, I'm paying attention to the Instagram for all that the new moon's coming up or the full moon's coming up. I'll just naturally think, oh, now's the time. But I will definitely feel it when it is seasonal, and I'll go out and I'll pick things and I'll put them on my
Mm,
altar. If it's autumn, I tend to go out and find the conkers. If it's this time of year, like spring, I'll go out and get the cleavers, get the nettles
mm.
that first start popping up, and I'll put those on my altar. And I pay real special attention to cleaning my altar and making sure that I move all of that energy around, because this is the time of year to do it, really. Um,
100%.
I do especially like having things that are natural to that season on my altar. I think that really helps to orient me into where I am in the place and time of this planet.
Mm. Yeah, that's really beautiful. That's exactly it. Like I always. Oh, sorry, hang on. Sorry, I've got my doggy here. He just almost pulled my computer off the table. Um, where were we at? Oh, so the altars, yeah, like yeah, I think actually doing your altar with the seasons is one of the easiest ways to get into like creating those spaces for yourself. So like, yeah, as much as I don't like to admit it, sometimes my altar can sit and get a little bit dusty. If that's happened, now's the time to clean that out. And there is something
Yeah.
very special in, like we talk about this a lot, you know, getting to know the genus Loki or getting to know the spirit of the land in animism, in
Mm.
shamanism. You want to be able to connect with the spirit of the land where you are. And in doing that, you will notice that throughout the year, obviously, you know, different things come out different times a year, but you'll start to see the gifts that are given in different
Mm-hmm.
seasons, you know. So like I feel like for my altar, my spring altar, I will have things like that. So I will have like whatever the fresh kind of flowers are, maybe some daffodils, things like that. I'll
Mm.
also gather like whatever's about. And at the moment it's a bit weird. I've really noticed that the plants that should have been coming out now are not coming out, because I feel like last year we had such a hot summer and
Mm.
it kind of fucked with the growth phases.
And
So
we've had
there's
a
a bit of me
weird
that's like,
winter. We had snow
we've had a
in
weird winter.
like December, November, December,
Mm,
which is kind of weird for the UK. You'd be
yeah,
expecting snow now. Now is when
yeah,
you'd be expecting
exactly.
snow, or so. Um, I don't know. I know that the core within the middle of the Earth is like stopping or rotating direction or something like that.
Oh, what?
Oh, the core,
You,
the metal core
the
at the middle
core's
of the
doing
Earth.
something. Oh,
You
yeah,
know, it normally moves in one direction.
yeah.
Well, it's like every so many thousand years, hundred
It
thousand years,
flips.
it'll like revert. Yeah, and we're now
Yeah,
overdue that flip.
I was reading about this years and years and years ago, but obviously years and years and years ago, my tiny human life is nothing in comparison to the actual life of the world. So
Yeah,
I read this book called Bill Bryson's The Story of Absolutely Everything, which is a fucking amazing book, and I loved it. And they spoke about this. So
yeah,
yeah, the magnetosphere is supposed to be flipping, so that north is south
yeah,
and south is north. Fuck me, if we
yeah,
lived
yeah.
through
So,
that, that would destroy
I mean, we're
everything. That would
overdue one.
destroy, like, we're overdue
It
it.
would, it would,
Imagine if,
we're overdue. It would knock out the grid. It would knock out satellite systems, and it happens over a period of 6 days. So this thing was, we could see the progress of this like years ago. Um, it's sort of moving at 10 miles in the opposite direction. I think it's now like sped up to like 40 miles. So within like the last 100 years, they've been able to monitor it speeding up, like turning the other way. So there'll be a period of 6 days where it will just, everything will complete. We're not here for a doomsday prepper
no, no,
thing,
no, 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 no,
guys,
no. But
but
before we move on,
but it's
do you think that will
important
happen
to
in our lifetime?
understand these things. Yeah, there's a large chance it will happen in our lifetime, um, but
Okay,
it's
guys.
important to understand how. This is
Sorry.
the Afro Animist prepping podcast.
All
We want
right.
to tell you all
Jane
to get
knows
your
where I'm
backpacks
going.
at the ready.
Get your fucking charcoal.
Get your
Get a water bag.
the radios, your walkie talkies,
Transistor radios. Help, like
transistor
seriously, everyone go and do a
radios.
St. John's ambulance course. We need to know fucking first aid. Like, get to learn the plants of the land.
Yes.
These are the things that will be here after the computers are gone. And I'm scared of this because I still use
But
Google
I
as my
didn't
main
bring
form of
this up to
magic.
throw fear in an Ostara episode, but the reason I bring it up is because the seasons are, we are so used to these seasons. However, um, that things are changing. We know that there is differences in the climate now, and we're able to track this and date this and carbon date it through trees and their rings and rocks and sediment, and we're actually able to monitor it while we're alive here and see the difference between 20 years ago and today. And the seasons are changing. There are loads of things that are changing the seasons. And I sort of wonder if this is why the pagans of this land, had their wheel of the year. Because if you think about it, if I'm thinking about anywhere that's close to the equator in continental Africa, any countries that are on the equator in continental Africa, they have equal day and night, right? They don't necessarily have the same seasonal. They won't necessarily have the equinoxes and the equinoxes that we observe and solstices that we observe, because it's just 6 hours, 6 hours. I do feel like the people of this land, they had to come up with these systems of measuring and marking, because if you're looking at the out of Africa theory, you're suddenly going from a place where you're getting consistent guarantee of the sun god, and then you come here and there's like no guarantee, or the guarantee becomes like, oh, well, what's happening here, what's happening there. Which is why, even as the Afro Animist podcast, we do talk about the wheel of the year, and not from a Wiccan standpoint, but from a standpoint where when you're in any place that is like slightly more seasonal, I do feel you need to mark though the seasons of that land. You do need to find a way to do that. That's a core part of animism, understanding the environment around you. Which is why we do, bang on about the wheel of year come when it comes up. Because you're supposed to use this time, because very soon, when that 6 day period comes, what are we to expect then? What are we to expect with the seasons, and is it going to be this consistent and predictable as the druids and the pagans of this land predicted? It might not be.
100%. I mean, like you say that you don't want to fill people with fear, which I agree with, but I don't feel scared about that. I actually feel quite excited. I'm like, wow, this is the world when my abilities will. I'm an agent of chaos, but also I feel like this is the world when my abilities will make sense. If shit goes down, guys, you want to come and find me, because I will survive. Like, I'll survive with a smile on my face. Like,
it's why I want to learn to arch properly. Honestly, I have such a natural skill and inclination for archery. Like, whenever I've picked up a bow and arrow, I'm amazed, and people are amazed. Like, how have you managed to pick that up so quickly? It's like, I'm an archer. It's just, I don't know what to tell you. I am an archer in a past life.
Can we do archery?
Yeah,
we should
we
do
absolutely
that together.
can. But I want to pick it up as a skill, because I feel like when the end times come, like, that's good. Someone's gonna need to know how to shoot a squirrel out of a tree, or someone on his ass.
What are you going to be doing? Throwing kitchen knives? I know, we won't be eating squirrels. There's not much meat on them.
No. I love squirrels. I'm not going to eat a squirrel.
But oh my gosh, I'm so excited about your archery skills. Sorry, I know we're talking about Ostara, but like, let's talk about this for a second. Yes, archery. That's sick. I feel like there are certain things that just throughout time have made sense. I actually read a book once about how to make your own bow. So I feel also like you and I, Jay, we're gonna make this happen. Well, we're gonna survive it. We're not gonna make it.
This is so interesting. We are absolutely going to go on a tangent here, because we went on a journey, and somehow, we're not going to go into detail, but the goddess, the nymph Daphne, I think she was obsessed with Artemis, who is the goddess of the hunt, and I think was able to bestow the gift of the arrow shooting straight. Complete side tangent.
What the effery? What the effery? I also got something similar in my journey, didn't I, babes? I got an arrow.
Yay, arrows.
Cray.
Maybe this is... We need to learn to arch. That's it. Sorry, weird tangent, guys. Weird tangent.
This is what happens when you do journeys first thing in the morning. Then nothing makes sense. It's a good advert for our upcoming course, isn't it? Like, okay, back to Ostara. So what can you do apart from like getting your preppers pack ready? You should have that ready any time of year. Let me look in my trusty almanac.
Work with the herbs this time of year. That's the biggest thing for me, I reckon. The biggest first thing. There's loads of big things. Go outside. Go to your local park. Go to your local green space. and see what's starting to pop up. You might see cleavers,
Mm.
you might see nettles. Um, what else might you see at this time of year, Nikki?
Oh gosh, you see everything. I mean, I've got. Can I just read it from the book?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So daffodils, camellias, fritillaries. I don't even know what they are. Primulas, stinking hellebore. Ooh, I'm gonna go and find myself some of that. Magnolias, wallflowers, pussy willow. The pussy willows come out at the time of year when it's time to fuck, guys. I've literally wanted to make the joke the whole episode, but we're talking about
We only did this episode so she could talk about
clean,
that.
cleaning out your bush so you can get ready to have what you want in there. Um, cherry blossoms. Okay, all right. So this is what we want to get to. Pay attention, please, guys. Let's be adult about this. Wild
Yeah.
garlic, obviously, like you said, nettle, rhubarb, purple broccoli,
Wild garlic's a
wild
really good one.
garlic. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got apparently leeks, parsnips, Jerusalem artichokes, chervil, coriander, parsley, rosemary, sage, bay. Bay.
Okay.
That's a message for Jay, guys.
Yeah.
And I also said to you earlier. About rosemary.
Yes, you did. Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting. Today is full of omens. Okay, so I kind of almost want to suggest this for our listeners. If you are doing this work where you're connecting with the land and you are potentially doing journey work or meditation or any of the stuff that we talk about on this podcast, you have a spiritual practice. One of the things that I'm really feeling and thinking about at the moment are the protections that we have naturally in the plants around us.
Yeah.
I suggested to Jay earlier to get a rosemary bush. Now she lives in a flat, so it's an interesting place to know where to put it. But rosemary is a great plant this time of year. Obviously, it's out and about in spring, but also rosemary is an amazing protection to have at your front door. So if you can have
Mm.
2 plants on either side of your door, if that's not possible because you live somewhere where you share a door, then on a window where you feel like the energy passes, or on your balcony door or your back door, it just means that whatever comes into your space is cleaned and safe and
You're
you're protected
channeling
from
this message, aren't you?
things. Maybe a little bit. I just feel like it's
Yeah.
very strong. Like I feel like everyone get a rosemary bush.
Get
um
rosemary. No, honestly, yeah. And if you can't afford to buy one, here's a cheeky tip. There is definitely gonna be some posho in your local area with one in the front garden. Take your shears, cut off just
mhm.
a branch of it, put it at home in some water until it grows roots, and then stick it in the ground.
Exactly. So this is one thing, guys. We're not saying go out and buy all this shit. We're saying take clippings because Mother Nature is fucking amazing. If you cut off something, then she will root herself somewhere else. So there's so many ways to do it. And yeah, there's especially look, I'm not saying to do this, but I noticed this one thing when I lived in London. Okay. Every roundabout, every like random road with an estate on it, the plants that they plant in those the plants they plant in the roundabout are rosemary, sage, and lavender. These are 3 of the most important plants, in my opinion, when you are starting your spiritual work. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah,
So,
I think especially if you're in this climate where these are the plants of the land, um, especially then,
Mhm,
like a big part of understanding and working with the herbs. And we say this every episode, but we need you to understand this message. It's about understanding using your Afro-diasporic practices, but with, or whatever your cultural practice is, with the herbs and with the plants of the land that is local to
mhm,
you.
mhm,
That is so important. It's not saying you don't work with what you've ancestrally worked with. You can absolutely do that, and I would encourage that. But understanding the land that you stand on, that's important. You were popped out at this space at this point in time to understand something about this particular experience. If you were meant to be directly and only knowing about one particular type of thing in your ancestral land, guess what? You would have been dropped there. Something about
Mm-hmm.
your experience wants to expand under these conditions. So you need to nurture and find the medicine in whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your job is right now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly that. And what a beautiful thing, actually, if we're flipping our perspectives on being ripped out of the motherland. Like, it's that. It's, where I actually feel there are days when I feel massively blessed that actually, like, I have been born on this land and I have had the experience I've had. And actually, that I have found the ability to connect in the way that I have it to a place that maybe does still feel quite alien to me in a weird way. Like I have my whole life. I felt like I should be somewhere else. Like I felt like I should be somewhere warm,
Yeah.
actually.
But do you know
But
what?
the
How we got here wasn't a neutral way. But the land you
no,
stand on, the land you stand on is neutral.
is neutral, exactly. And to kind of be able to recognize that and bask in the gifts of whatever land you're on is absolutely amazing. Like think about when you go on holiday to somewhere that's different from where you are, and you're just so in awe and in love with just like that different landscape. Or we go to a beach and we're like, fucking hell, my god, this is so amazing, the sun, the sand, the sea. To be able to take that awe and find it in your in your local park, like, is so important. Okay, I want to say something else now, which is a little bit of subject, but it's about awe. I was listening to a podcast the other day and it has had on it, oh fuck, what was his name? Oh my god, this guy who writes about happiness, right? He's a scientist, like a research scientist, and he writes about happiness. I feel like this is time of year when we start to get happy, spring vibes, guys. So it's like what he was talking about, one of the most useful things for human beings to experience is awe. It directly affects the system that creates inflammation. So just by feeling awe, your system will calm down. Like, so this is it as well. Like when I go out, the way that I connect with the land, like I don't just walk around. I mean, sometimes I'll just walk around and just walk through it and don't pay attention. But actually, in those moments when I'm trying to connect, I don't go there and go, oh yeah, I'm just really going to be with that tree and I'm going to try and get that plant to talk to me and I'm going to try and talk to that bird. I just walk through and go, fucking hell, oh my God, how great. This is so green and luscious and beautiful. Wow, look at that bunny just going. Repeated moments of awe, just like calming me down, filling my system, and also teaching me so much. The amount of stuff that I have learned just by watching is actually, sometimes it blows my own mind. And I never really toot my own horn about shit, but like I've received so many messages from nature, and it hasn't been like some little crow flying down and whispering in my ear all the secrets of the fucking crows. It's literally just been watching them and watching their behavior, watching what they do at different times of year, watching how they interact with each other. And that's magic. That's actual, true, real magic. So get out, get yourself some awe, gather yourself some local beautiful gifts from the land, put them on your altar and connect with those places, guys. Now is the time of year to enjoy it.
Everything is a teacher
Everything is
if
a
you let
teacher.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I've going back to Ostara and how to mark it, how to celebrate it. In one of
Mm-hmm.
my favourite books, Witch Life by Emma
Oh yeah,
Catherine,
yeah.
here is our esteemed mentor. She puts together this incense blend for Ostara, which you can burn while you're doing your rituals. And I just absolutely love it. I haven't. There's no way you can put these together and it not smell like spring. Do you know what I mean? I just
Oh,
can't
let me have a
imagine
look.
it not smelling more spring like than this. So it's 2 parts chamomile, 1 part lavender, 1 part rosemary, 1 part thyme, and 1 part pine resin. And you place all the materials together in pestle and mortar until you have a powder, and then you burn it over charcoal. And it's great for inviting in those new beginnings for this time of year. What I particularly like about this is this pine element, because pine is something that I would probably associate more with summer. Actually, I don't know why in my head I would, but I feel like this is like a, it kind of adds this gateway element, because spring is the gateway to summer. It's inviting in the the peak of the sun god into your experience, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
pine resin element I think that's particularly, I don't know, it just feels like right. It feels right for that type of incense blend.
Oh
But yeah,
gosh.
it's she gives loads of different information on the wheel of the year in here. So observing
Yeah,
each of the different seasons, the equinoxes, the solstices, and marking those just has the opportunity for creating those moments of awe. Really,
exactly. There we go. Oh my gosh. And I tell you what, yeah, that incense sounds absolutely divine. Divine.
yeah.
She's got a couple of other good recipes in there as well, which I just noticed. You see the okay. Chocolate brownies with thick and creamy custard. Fucking hell. This is in a witchcraft book. I love it so much. I might actually have to make that today.
Yeah, don't.
Oh my gosh. You need to get
If
this,
you
but
start
I'm gonna
me,
make my chocolate brownies with the custard while I'm burning my incense while I'm meditating on the birds. It's gonna be a great
I
day.
can't make brownies at home, you see, because my husband doesn't like them. So if I make brownies, I'm going to have to eat all of it by myself, and that's not good for anyone.
That sounds so sad. How unfortunate for you.
Thanks, Nikki. Always appreciate the
I'm,
empathy.
I'm sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
see this lady?
Anyway, I I just feel like you should be able to have your brownies and your rosemary bush and your bay. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
okay. So, what are you? Do you have a plan for Equinox? Like, are you going to do anything specifically to celebrate for yourself to mark that time?
um. Yeah. I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna meditate as I do. I'm gonna go out and I'm going to gather some things to put on my altar. I go and clear my altar, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to invite the spirits that protect these things onto my altar. The benevolent ones. I'm going to invite the benevolent spirits, not the
Mm-hmm.
malevolent spirits. Very specific about that.
Very
And
specific. Yes.
I'm going to set some, intentions in the form of incantations for um, the new year. And I like incantations because it's just poetry, and I think there's a long link between poetry and the magical crafts. The druids, they had to learn poetry. They have, and I don't know, that rhythm. It brings energy into the space. So that's what I'll be doing.
That's
What will you be
beautiful.
doing?
Um, Something very similar. I also want to say really quickly about what you've just said about poetry, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The message that I had from from my actual my yoga teacher, who came from a lineage of yoga teachers, and when we were studying the Vedas, she actually said about that. So she said, like, the reason these texts and things, the reason we create poetry, the reason we may write these texts in a slightly more allegoric way is so that people do the work of understanding that place. So they do the work of
Mm.
understanding the rhythm. So they do the work of heightening whatever they need to heighten in themselves to be able to connect with those ideas in the text. So yeah, I think that's so incredibly beautiful. My plan for the equinox is the same essentially. Like, I just want to do like a big clean out. I'm feeling it so much. There's, just to completely shift all of the energy. I want to after so do the clean out, and then the inviting in is really important. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of stuff in my life right now that is taking up space that good stuff really wants to come in and take over the same space. So cleaning that out, and then I'm just going to
Yeah.
be very, very, very intentional with my goals. It's all going to be about planting seeds, I think, this one. So I'm going to sit, I'm going to meditate over the time. What did I say the time was when equinox actually was happening? So if you're in obviously this is northern hemisphere, so here it will
Yeah.
be 20th of March at 21:24. The sun will be exactly above the
Mm.
equator. So around that time, that's when I'll be meditating on the intentions that I've set, and just bringing in like a clean, clear energy for that. I also think around that time I'm going to do a lot of going out and foraging. So yeah, I'm quite excited about spring.
It's gonna
Very
be
excited
it's gonna
about it.
be brilliant. It's the true start to 2023.
I know. And what a year it's going to be. It's going to be a year of pure beauty and magic, guys.
Definitely, we're inviting so much of that into our lives, and we want to give that back to you, which is why we're still working on this course. This course is ready in spring, and this course that we're creating is going to set you off to the right way, to clear the path. It's a whole course about clearing the path to lay your manifestations, because you can't lay your manifestations without clearing out all of the junk that you've got. Just imagine your house, if you were to keep bringing new things in without like getting rid of the old stuff, giving it to a charity shop, throwing it in the bin, clearing it out, you would just be in a house where you couldn't move. So we're all about like hauling all the shit out, and this is what this course is about. So keep your ears and eyes open, and that should be with you very, very soon. Now's as good a time as any to say goodbye. Goodbye, dear listener, for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on the Afro Animist podcast. I'm Jay Percy.
And I'm Nicola Roth, and we will catch you all next week. Bye.
See you. Bye. Thank you, beautiful being of the multiverse, for joining us on the Afro Animist podcast.
If you want to get stuck into the conversation or have a question about anything we speak about here, join our mailing list and find us on our socials.
On TikTok and Instagram, find us at the Afro Animist podcast.
On Twitter, you can find us at Afro Animist. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can also find this talk on YouTube. Just search for us and we will pop up as if by magic.
If you're loving what we're talking about here, share, like, and subscribe. And remember to leave us a thumbs up or 5-star rating on your favourite platform.